Hi there again. This is Dr. Saunders, your professor for Music 1800, Popular Music, and this is the introduction to Learning Module 9, which is going to deal with British invasion and American popular music in the 1960s. We still hear a lot of British invasion music out there, but we don't hear a lot of American music sometimes from the early 1960s and mid 1960s, and there's a reason for that. Some of that music is very formulaic and very repetitive, much like mainstream pop music tends to be anyway. And we remember the 60s a little bit different than they actually happened. Uh, what we think of as the 60s really didn't get going until 1967, 1968, with the hippies and the flower children and the peace, love, and rock and roll and all of those things going on. A lot of the 60s, the early part of the 60s were, there was some unrest and it was building, but it was more like what you see on a TV show like Mad Men, which is a really fantastic depiction of life in the 1960s. Or so I'm told. I was only born in 1976, so it's a little tough to say. But just remember, the way we remember a decade, the way we remember an era, is not necessarily how that era actually was. And that's particularly true with pop music, where the media and the popular culture shape our ideas of what the past was. So we're going to look at what was really on the pop charts in the 1960s. And of course, the Beatles and the British invasion bands are a big part of that idea. It's also time to rethink our concept of harmony and our concept of form a little bit. We're moving into a different era, so to speak. Now, we're still going to hear things like Tin Pan Alley song form and 12-bar blues, but from the 1960s forward, you're a lot more likely to hear kind of these repetitive, short fragments of harmony, these repeated chord progressions. They're still in use today to a certain extent, and I call them harmonic schemata. And schemata is the plural form of a word called schema, and a schema is just a cliche or a device that pops up frequently from time to time. You've got a good list of them. You've got a slideshow about them, and you need to be comfortable with them, be able to pick out what it is that I'm talking about in there. We're also going to compare the Beatles and the Beach Boys, the top-selling British band of the 1960s and the top-selling American band of the 1960s. And because I think their career arcs have some similarities, and your book points those out in chapter 9. And we're also going to look at song form and how that evolves and how it becomes really more complex. We're getting into an era where we don't write down a song and let somebody else arrange it necessarily. Songwriters today write a song as it is intended to be played on the radio, right? And so if you were to go and get the sheet music for a Billy Joel song or a song by even something by Jerry Lieber and Mike Stoller that they might have written for Elvis or one of the other early rock and rollers, you're going to find that song is all worked out as you would hear it in the arrangement. As opposed to if you get the sheet music for a Cole Porter song, you will have the basic song, but how that song might appear in a recording is up to the arranger, not the composer. So we're going to see how these forms get a little more complex during this time by looking at some examples. We even get to look at Taylor Swift a little bit in this lesson. So check all this out. The 1960s are a hugely interesting time, and we'll keep going from there. Have a great day. We'll talk to you soon.